Music for All is proud to sponsor Bandstand. At Music for All, we're about providing positively life-changing experiences. Join us with your marching band at Bands of America or with your concert ensemble at the Music for All National Festival. Students can audition for our honor ensembles or attend camp at the Music for All Summer Symposium, featuring the Sweetwater Director Academy, an amazing week of professional development for directors led by Dr. Nola Jones. Learn more at musicforall.org.
Romeo Music is the leader in audio, video, music, and lighting technology for educators. With a combined nearly 200 years of experience, Romeo Music's subject matter experts understand the struggles that face teachers in today's music classrooms. With a laser focus on educational technology, Romeo Music provides a turnkey solution, everything from audio cables to on-site training. To learn more, visit www.romeomusic.net.
Hello, and welcome to Bandstand, the official podcast of the Tennessee Bandmasters Association. I'm your host, David Aydelott, and I hope you'll join us on a journey through the past, present, and future of bands in Tennessee. We'll delve into the rich history of Tennessee bands, uncovering the hidden gems and legendary figures who shaped the state's band landscape. We'll survey the present, where you'll meet the movers and shakers of today, gaining insights from their expertise and experiences. And we'll gaze towards the future, exploring the exciting possibilities that await Tennessee's school bands. Today, I speak with Stephen Coleman, the president of ArtsEd Tennessee. ArtsEd Tennessee advances, promotes, and supports music, theater, dance, and visual art education through a robust statewide coalition of arts education advocates, including education, community, business, and parent members. With a focus on state policy, ArtsEd Tennessee is a champion for supportive policies and essential funding to advance quality, accessible arts education for all students. Stephen and I chat about the past, present, and future of ArtsEd Tennessee. We also talk a little bit about the legislative process and the unintended consequences of education legislation on arts education and how teachers and arts advocates can begin to be more proactive when it comes to policy that affects arts education. Stephen talks about how he defines advocacy, a term that gets thrown around a lot but is often a bit nebulous. Stephen talks about teaching in rural areas with his wife Marion and gives advice to young teachers. What I hope Bandstand listeners learn today is that we do have a voice representing us with decision makers, and that ArtsEd Tennessee has a free course about how to build an arts coalition in your local community. Stephen was just getting over COVID when we recorded this episode, and we have a few little audio issues. I hope you'll be able to get past those and hear the important words and message that Stephen shares on this episode. Steve, thanks so much for being on Bandstand.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So can you just start from the beginning? Let's hear about how ArtsEd Tennessee came to be.
Okay, so I have to be a bit wonky to do that. In 2015, there was an earth-shattering change in how education in K-12 education in Tennessee was handled, or in the nation was handled. The Every Student Succeeds Act, passed in 2015, among other things, made music and the arts a part of the core curriculum, as we all have advocated for many times. But the other thing was, most decisions involving the curriculum moved from the federal level, the education department, the U.S. Education Department, to the state level. So the first year that happened was 2016, that it hit us locally. And so I was very interested in what would be going on with our state legislature, only to discover that they were talking about issues they knew very little about, and we seemed to have no input in the process. So it was late in 2016 that I got together with Laurie Schell, former director of Music Makes Us in Metro Nashville, and Tabor Stamper, at that time the CEO of KHS America, and I talked about my vision to start an organization that would not be focused on any single content, but on things that that all arts teachers need. And one of the first things we wanted to do was to look at the legislation and figure out a way to let people know that things were coming down the pike that might be a problem. So that was the initial idea. It was solely focused on reporting what's going on from the General Assembly.
How did you get into a place where you had the wherewithal to begin an organization like this?
When ESSA was first passed, I was still in the faculty at Cumberland University, and I was teaching a course in music education. And I wanted to make sure that the students understood how policy impacted them and where policy came from. And that's what started it. I started looking into that, and I thought,
Okay.
oh my God, here's what's happening. I realized for us to be effective that we were going to have to become a nonprofit, have a board. I put together a board that represented more aspects of the arts in Tennessee than we normally do. We normally focus on arts teachers. We decided to include arts dealers, people whose businesses relied on arts education to operate,
Sure.
arts manufacturers, the people that were sensitive to what was going on in the arts classroom, so that we broadened our coalition of people who care about the arts surviving in the state. And so the idea was that ArtsEd Tennessee eventually became a coalition of people that represented various organizations and various businesses, all of which with the same goal. Let's keep the arts strong in the state.
I think this may come back later in our conversation, but how important is it to start with a wide base like what you're describing when you want the outcome that you want for ArtsEd Tennessee?
We have to recognize that although sometimes we feel like this way when we're teaching, we're not an island. It's not just, if you are a band director, it's just not you and your band and your program, that there are outside forces that impact that. And those outside forces are much broader than just making sure your schedule works for your kids for next fall.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we were trying to do. Let's make sure everybody understands that that music dealer that comes to visit a band director is vitally concerned about the health of your program, as is the fundraiser that comes there. There are so many auxiliary businesses that could not survive without arts in the curriculum.
Realtors, people are moving into Tennessee from all over the country. And so realtors, there are folks that are moving in from Tacoma, Washington that have students and children that are interested in the arts. And so they have a vested interest as well. Okay, so that was 2016. Where are you now? How far has ArtsEd come since 2016?
We have broadened our goals. We're not so just concerned on only legislation. We're also concerned with working with the State Board of Education on issues that impact arts education. Everything obviously is going to be focused around keeping the arts strong in the curriculum. That's what it's all about. We've done outreach to partner organizations to emphasize the importance of the arts, some of those same talking points that we use often. The latest initiative we started with that we just completed, which I think is going to be a game changer as soon as more people realize it's there. It's hard to talk about arts education in Tennessee right now, this year, without addressing the number of constraints that have come from recent legislation that impacts the choice of repertory that you use, how you present that to your students, what you can and cannot say to them, even how you can and cannot interact with students. This year, even band directors have talked to me about not being able to give their kid a Band-Aid during band camp without first getting permission from a parent because it's considered non-emergency medical treatment. So none of these things were put in place originally with the goal of let's see how difficult we can make it for people who teach the arts. They were put together for other reasons. Many of those laws that we're so concerned about right now involve making decisions on the things I talked about, on content, on what's appropriate to present at what grade level. But the decisions themselves on that content are not coming from the legislature. Those decisions are coming from your local community. So we worked in partnership with the CMA Foundation and developed an online course. So the funding was from the CMA Foundation and developed an online course that helps the local arts teacher deal with that. Now I realize that's one more thing to add to your plate, but if you don't, there are so many other things that are on that plate that you want to deal with that you can't. So I realize that. Uh, One of the speakers on our course, on our online course, which we'll talk a bit more about a bit later, was Peter Boonshaft, and I think most people in our profession know the name Peter Boonshaft. He said that the one thing that was lacking in his education before he became a band director was no one told him that advocating for his program was going to be such an essential part of what he did. And he said, I had no training from college for that. And of course, none of us do. That's not something we expect to get from our colleges. There are some things we just have to learn when we get out in the business, and that's one of them. This course will help an arts teacher in a community build that coalition around them of people that they can use as their sounding board, both to support their program, to answer questions that of content. They can use that organization for that as well.
Let's go back to the legislation. So I want to understand what you're saying. There's not a consensus within the legislature to actively restrict arts education. More or less, it's unintended consequences from legislation that accomplishes other items of interest for the legislature. Is that correct?
Right. Some of this legislation we have had and continue to have the ability to meet with the sponsors in advance while we get the legislation while it's still in draft form. And if we see what's going to be a problem, like a couple of years ago, there was a push to add Tennessee history as a one semester course at the high school level. As most people know, there's not a whole lot of room left in that required course list for high school. So we were able to meet with, in this case, the chairman of the House Education Committee and explain the problem. If you continue with a one semester course, in some schools there will be nothing for the second semester, number one. Number two, it's going to impact all of the arts programs in that particular school, as well as any other electives. Anything a student would like to study for more than 2 years, because it was going to leave us with only 2 years of electives to work with, or 1 year of electives left to work with. So that bill was changed. The bills we will have the least possibility of impacting are those bills that deal truly with what I'm calling the culture war issues. What you can and cannot tell a child, what should and should not be included in a history class.
Are there other specific examples besides the Tennessee history that people should know about, where ArtsEd Tennessee has been able to work on our behalf?
There is a piece of legislation right now that is not a problem in Middle Tennessee, as I know, but in some sections of Upper East Tennessee has been an issue, and it's release time for religious moral training. There is a bill on the books that a student in high school can leave school for one entire class period, be transported off campus to have moral instruction of the religious beliefs that align with the parent. The parent has to sign off on it. The school system does not offer the course. It does not provide transportation to and from. And in some East Tennessee school systems, it has impacted middle school arts programs because there is no free. I mean, at the high school level, you can schedule a class. You can't do that at the middle school level. So it has to infringe on something. And in East Tennessee, in those school systems, it's been infringing on the arts classes.
So the outcome with ArtsEd Tennessee in part is that teachers become more proactive and less reactive.
Yes, yes, and key to that is being informed. That is one of our concerns. The school systems that handled the computer science scheduling conflict best were the schools that started it um, when the issue was first discussed. We sent out in our legislative up, and that was 2 years ago, not last session. It was addressed
Right.
last session, but all they did last session was to clarify from the previous year. And 2 years ago, we were told it was coming this year. Now, I'm not criticizing those folks who waited until in service of this year to deal with it because they didn't know. The problem is more of our teaching community has to be informed about things that are coming down the pike, and they have to be aware of them. So we have two groups of people. We have the people that receive legislative updates from us that are on our mailing list and receive information from us and choose to deal with it with their administration now. We have those people that see that information and say, this will never be a problem for me, and then have to deal with it when it is. And then the thing that concerns me the most, and I know concerns you as well, are those people that are not being reached at all, that don't know that there is a legislative update out there. They don't know there is an ArtsEd Tennessee. They don't know that there's a TMEA or a Tennessee Bandmasters. They don't know those resources exist for them. And that's a concern for all of us, I believe.
And especially I would think in the challenging districts, the urban and the rural districts, there's so much churning that happens with teacher turnover and new folks coming in all the time that if I'm a junior in college, I'm not thinking about the legislation that I'm going to have that's going to impact my teaching in 2 years. I'm just trying to get through my upper division recital.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so again, this is a big challenge for us because so many of those schools where we have in rural and urban areas those programs are being taken over and run by folks that have just graduated, who are making the switch from student to adult, which is a huge switch anyway in their lives. And then also all these things that are impacting them from the state legislature.
Exactly.
So there's a lot to be communicated, even down into the undergrads and folks that are student teaching in the preceding year. And hopefully this podcast can go a long way towards that. That's one of the reasons we want to have you on, Steve, and I'm so glad you're here. And we want to have you back, especially during the legislative session as well, to sort of get the word out ahead of time along with the newsletter that you produce. And hopefully we can increase the reach of ArtsEd Tennessee. Okay, where do you see it in 10 years, this wonderful organization that you've started?
Well, as you well know, ArtsEd Tennessee convened a meeting just in the last couple of weeks that combined the minds of the best of TMEA, of TAEA, and of the state's new statewide theater organization, the Tennessee Theater Education Association. And those folks, plus the Department of Education, moderated by ArtsEd Tennessee, got together to address issues such as how do we make sure that people that are in isolated parts of the state have the resources and opportunities that you would have anywhere else. So
Mhm.
this combining of efforts for a common good between all of the arts organizations in the state represents uh, something immense. I mean, let's think about it.
Mm-hmm.
If we look at I think a lot of your listeners are members of TMEA. So if we use TMEA as the statewide example, active K-12 arts teachers, there's 1,200 members. However, in the state of Tennessee, there's 4,500 K-12 arts educators. So, and TMEA has the largest membership of any organization. So from TMEA, it just drops down precipitously.
Mm-hmm.
So the ability of us to work together for the common goal right now of involving as many arts educators in the state in their professional organizations, for not so that the organizations can say, oh my God, we have got X number of members, but because those organizations bring value to the profession. They provide professional development, they provide networking opportunities, they provide the ability to see exemplary organizations and learn how those organizations got where they are. All of these things are things our state associations provide, and I can see a time that all of our state content areas, visual art, music, theater, all work together to make sure that our entire arts education community is unified and that they are sharing ideas. So that's what I would see in 10 years.
And more reach, so that the average teacher in the hinterlands is equipped and armored with the ability to advocate for the program.
Well, and David, you and I are in the same situation, is in that we would start our band camps in the fall and have to steal a few times away to go into in-service to see what's going on with that, only to hear about things that no one had told us about that were going to impact our students that year. And you're going, where did this come from? How did this happen? Uh, One of the goals of Arts in Tennessee is to make sure that oh my God moment doesn't happen to an arts teacher before the school year starts. This at least lets you know in
Yes.
advance, this ball is rolling down the hill. See if you can divert it before it hits you.
What does advocacy look like for you, Stephen?
You know, I've been involved in arts education a long, long, long time, and I have heard advocacy. I've been beaten over the head with it so much that
Yes.
I kind of hate the word, because generally when I hear advocacy, I see someone who is not a practitioner standing up in front of me, telling me what I should be doing. And I'm thinking, okay, let's see, would this be before or after school rehearsal? I got a game on Friday night. I got it on Saturday. What are you talking
The freshmen don't
about?
know the fight song yet.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Or that first home ball game, and oh my God, we got to hit the banner before before Friday.
Yeah,
All of
that's
those
exactly
things,
right.
and they're talking to you about this esoteric term advocacy. Let's cut the crap away from that. Advocacy is very
Love this.
simple. It is you explaining your program to others. Simple as that. Why is your pro?
And getting them to explain it to others as well, right?
Exactly. But when you go to your principal, and say this schedule won't work, we have to talk about this schedule. This is not going to be good for the band program. And if the band program doesn't look good, you're not going to look good. So let's talk
Yes.
about this. You just advocated. You just advocated. When you go to a parent and you ask them to join the booster club because you could use their skills in that club, you're an advocate. That's what advocating
Yes.
is. It's just talking about the thing that you believe in the most anyway, and getting others to be as enthusiastic as you are about it.
Yeah, it's not so much shiny posters as it is two parents checking the mail at the same time, having a conversation about the benefits of music education, or folks after they leave their small group at church talking about what a great time that their student had in band this past year. Those are the elements of advocacy that you really get a lot of mileage out of as a teacher. That's where recruiting really gets manifested, is in those little nuts and bolts conversations that happen amongst parents as part of their regular everyday life. Not a big production, not a slick presentation, but just those little passing moments that everybody has all the time. That's where advocacy, for me, really becomes important.
Exactly. And building an advocacy coalition in your community doesn't have to take time away from what you do. You can have you probably everybody that listens to your podcast has that parent that would love to have an extra job to do. They're just bugging you every day for one more thing to do. And having an advocacy group is not having a booster group.
Exactly.
That's one part of it. But you also need those community leaders that are movers and shakers. Who is it that your superintendent has lunch with? Who are the people that your board members listen to? Who are those people? And how do I get those people to know how important my program is to my students and to this community?
And most every band program has a parent or two that's like that. They may be the pastor at the Baptist church. They may own the Ford dealership. They may own a restaurant in this small community. Most band programs have a parent or two that have influence in their community.
Right. You're exactly correct. But we don't have to limit ourselves to just those parents who have kids in our program. When you go, if you live in any size town in Tennessee, when you're a band director walking around, someone is going to stop you and tell you how much they enjoyed last Friday night or the concert last Sunday. They're going to talk about that, and they don't have a kid involved. Those are the surprising things, and those are the people that you want to have talking about your program as well. I think it's important to note that ArtsEd Tennessee is not trying to sell anything. We have no product to offer. We have no programs to. We have no programs we're trying to sell. Everything we do is free. The online course, which cost tens of thousands of dollars to put together, is free. Our the why of ArtsEd Tennessee is I have a board full of people who care about the arts. Some because it affects their bottom line, some because they just care about the arts. They just know the difference it made in their lives, and they want to spread that to others. So the only why for us is to make sure that your individual program is getting the support it needs and you're getting the information you need to be a strong advocate or be a strong band director, be a strong teacher.
Okay, it's been 8 years. What are you proud of?
The number of people that are now aware that decisions are being made outside of their community that impact them. We get regular correspondence with people who are subscribing to our newsletters and who let us know that they appreciate understanding how the sausage is made. And speaking of that, that's in the course as well. If you've ever wondered, if you remember the whole Schoolhouse Rock, how Bill is created, ours is not that cool and slick, but it does tell you how it works in Tennessee. So ours is a bit more of a horror story, but it still covers how does an idea in a legislator become something that impacts you in your rehearsal room? How did that
I love that.
happen? And where along that process could you possibly make a change? I think the thing that is also exciting to me is to see the larger number of arts teachers that are comfortable talking to their local legislative member and saying that bill hurt us or that bill really helped us. Let's remember, these legislators are not DC politicians. So ESSA, in one way, was our friend in that it gave the decision making, uh, brought it closer to home. It gave us an opportunity to directly access those people that make the decisions. More on the negative side is it gave people who know nothing about education the ability to propose education legislation. But that's where organizations like ArtsEd Tennessee step in and say, okay, we'll give you the information you don't have.
And that's why it's important for people to get involved and to speak to your legislators. It's how things work. So hopefully people will hear this and realize that they're empowered to have those conversations.
And let's remember, if you're a band director, you have a booster club. If you have a booster club, you have a collection of voters. And when a lot of the elections for the Tennessee General Assembly are decided by just under 100 or a few hundred votes, that booster club has a big impact. So that band director has a big impact, more than you might think.
A word of caution, though, I think it's a fine line because booster clubs and 501c3s in the state can't become political organizations. Am I right?
Exactly. All you can do is advocate for whatever your mission statement is. If your booster organization is set up as a 501c3, then you have to have a mission statement, and you can work to support your mission statement. You can't politic for a particular candidate, but you can approach a candidate and you can lobby for the legislation you want.
What is your most significant roadblock?
The vastness of Tennessee, the number of areas that are not being covered right now. So we have statewide, among all content areas, we have 65 to 70% of our teachers that don't know TMEA exists, they don't know TBA exists, they don't know ArtsEd Tennessee exists. That's my greatest concern. And I think that's the greatest challenge for all of us in Tennessee that want to see arts education continue.
I think this answers my next question, but what can band folks across the state do to help? It's a great mission that ArtsEd Tennessee has. Could provide great value for arts education in our state. We have to get the word out, right? So that's probably the main thing that folks can do to help is to spread the word about this organization.
Right. It's easy to sign up for our newsletters. You will not get an inbox full of stuff. We don't send out regular newsletters. We send out newsletters when there's something you need to know. So if you see something that's coming from ArtsEd Tennessee, it's not going to be asking you to buy anything. It's not going to be promoting anything else. It's going to be giving you information either from the General Assembly, the Department of Education, or the State Board of Education, which has much more power over what we do in the classroom than I think most people realize. Those organizations are put out material, and we amplify that material when we think it's important in our profession.
And just so we're clear, ArtsEd Tennessee, you don't have to be a teacher to be a part of this. Any parents that are listening to this podcast, or even students or undergrads or retired directors, or anyone can be involved in this organization and get this information. So if it's something that interests you folks, then please check out ArtsEd Tennessee. What's the URL, Steve?
ArtsEdTennessee.org or .com.
There you go. And check it out. Sign up for it. Sign up for that course and learn as much as you can so we can pave the way for a great future. We have so much potential. Our state's changing so much all the time in positive ways. It really is. It feels challenging, but there's a lot of opportunity. Steve, I always ask this when folks come on, but what would you say, and if you would take off your ArtsEd nonprofit hat and put on your old band director hat right now, what would you say to young teachers, somebody who's just starting out right now?
Oh, this is going to sound redundant from so many other people. Network, find colleagues, I was very fortunate, depending on for any of your listeners that know this individual I'm about to say, I was very fortunate in that someone connected with my wife and I, with Marion and I, our first year of teaching, that was teaching in a school nearby at a quite a different level than we understood, and that was Stanley Barnes. Uh, Stanley was at Clinton High School, and I was in Morgan County at Wartburg High School, and we didn't know anything. We knew nothing. Most people don't know this, Marion's degree is in vocal performance and piano, as she has, and choral conducting. So kind of a unusual way to become a band director. But anyway, that's what it was, and it was Stanley's visit that let us realize there's other people out there. And then from that, we met all of that group of people, Tony DeAndrea and Gene Collins, and the list goes on, Chet Hedgecoth. And so we had those mentors our first year out of the profession. So
Wow.
it couldn't have been better for us. And that's what everybody needs. And then when we taught at Waverly, we hadn't been there again a year, and Ralph Hell dropped by.
I mean, everybody you've talked about here pretty much is in the TBA Hall of Fame,
Yeah, pretty much.
or
Yeah,
will
I
be
know.
someday.
And they reached
Including
out
you and
to
Marion are
us.
both in. You went in several years ago.
They reached out to us. I don't know if as young as we were, I don't know if we would have had the confidence to approach them, but the fact that they approached us for us was a real blessing.
And that's, and I would say this too. What about folks in urban and rural areas? Tips for them. I don't know that people know this. I think people know about Tullahoma, that you had such great success at Tullahoma. But when I was in high school, you and Marion were at Waverly, and Waverly is in Humphreys County, and that borders the county that I'm from. And so I was good friends with a lot of kids in the Waverly band because we played you in football, and I did honor bands with a lot of your Waverly kids. But you had incredible success at Waverly.
I think the thing that we all tend to do, even if we're in an urban area, is to get so wrapped up in our program we isolate ourselves from the ideas that are floating around there that could help us. And uh, we've just been, not because we were smart enough to figure it out, we've just been fortunate enough to have people that have entered in at times that have provided that information for us. But for most of us, we have to go out and seek that type of information. Just don't think that you're in a place that nobody is going to come and do your private lessons, that no one is going to come and guest conduct your band. At Waverly, at our peak, we had a percussionist from the National Symphony that did our percussion. We didn't know at that time we needed someone to do a drum line, so we hired a percussionist to teach our kids, and they that's what they were doing then. We had the father of tuba instruction in Tennessee, Jim Garrett, that came out and taught our brass students. Neil Ramsey, who is now a well-known professional classical saxophonist, taught private lessons for us, as did Jeff Kirk, who is now a dean at Belmont. And I mean, and Waverly's in the middle of nowhere. We just contacted those people. We were enthusiastic and didn't even think about the idea that they would say, "No, we don't do that." And they drove out. They taught our kids. So keep in mind that just because I teach in this town, and it's an isolated town, that you have to be isolated, or that the same opportunities that kids from more urban areas, such as where you left, David, in Williamson County, that the same opportunities can be constructed in anywhere.
You just have to be creative and persistent.
Yeah, and call on the people
Right? It's not easy. It's not easy. I'm not trying to minimize the difficulty, but it can be done.
Right. But part of teaching specifically band is that it's hard. That's one of the things about it is it's hard. And no matter how long you teach, you keep discovering, crap, I didn't know that. And I didn't know I didn't know that. So, I mean, it's never ending, and that doesn't matter where you're teaching. So it's easy to be in a rural area and think, oh my God, nobody needs to know I didn't understand that. When you will discover that you have plenty of colleagues that didn't know that either.
So thank you, Stephen, so much for coming on, and can't wait to have you back on again sometime soon.
Okay, thanks so much. Enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to Bandstand. Bandstand's mission is to build a stronger, more unified band community in Tennessee by fostering meaningful conversations about the past, present, and future of school bands in our state. If you have topic suggestions or need to get in touch with us, email us at tbabandstandpodcast@gmail.com. Your input is important to us, and if you have a topic you'd like to discuss about the past, present, or future of Tennessee bands, please let us know. Again, that email is tbabandstandpodcast@gmail.com. Right now, we're broadcasting on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, so please subscribe, review, and rate. Box 5, please. And if you find something interesting or helpful, please share this podcast with your friends. Bandstand is proud to be sponsored by Music for All and Romeo Music. See you next week.